News with no bias.
This with no exemptions.
Including nothing but the truth. This is DZRX 99.1 News of Today. The Voice.
The Agent. The Catalyst of Cantilan.
Broadcasting live at Regado Source State University, Cantilan. Here are your news anchors for today.
Morning, Philippines.
Good morning, Cantilan. It is now 10 in the morning and I am Ailyn Mendaña.
I am Mary Jane Rihanna.
You are tuning in to DZRX 99.1 News of Today. In the headlines, Field of Linguistics, Development of Linguistics, Early Period of Linguistics, Early Modern Period of Linguistics, Linguistics in the 19th century, Linguistics in the 20th century, Recent Trends and Structural Model, Classification of Language.
Are back for the Field of Linguistics. Kajaani Champagne Obatay will give us an update.
Yes, what is linguistics? Linguistics is the scientific study of language and its structure, including the study of morphology, syntax, phonetic, and semantics. Specific branches of linguistics include sociolinguistics, dialectology, psycholinguistics, computational linguistics, historical comparative linguistics, and applied linguistics. What is the field of linguistics? Field linguistics refers to the collection of primary data and the basic grammatical facts of a relatively little studied language from ordinary speakers in a relatively natural setting, and to the analysis and dissemination of such data. This type of data collection is usually called field work. Why is it important for us to study the field of linguistics? Apart from simply understanding the intricacies of world language, this knowledge can be applied to improving communication between people, contributing translation activities, assisting in literacy efforts, and treating speech disorders. What is the relation of linguistics and social science? Linguistics, in its relation to social science, is what is linguistics. Linguistics, the systematic study of human language, lies at the crossroads of the humanities and the social sciences. Linguistics is a theoretical discipline with ties to such areas as cognitive psychology, philosophy, logic, computer science, and anthropology. What is the importance of linguistic approach? Linguistics helps teachers convey the origins of words and language, their historical application, and their modern-day relevance. Combined, this approach to teaching language helps students gain a better, more in-depth understanding of their assignments and work product expectations. This is Kajaani Champagne Obatay. Back to you, Mary Jane.
For the development of linguistics, Angelene Delos Arcos has this report.
Development of linguistics. The present expanding scope of linguistics is the outcome of a complex history. As a separately organized discipline, some name linguistics. However, quite young in English-speaking countries, the Linguistic Society of America was founded in 1924 and the Linguistics Association of Great Britain in 1965. Almost all of the independent departments of linguistics have appeared only since World War II. Indeed, linguistics has only recently displaced philology as a great name from the study of language, and linguist is still widely used by laymen for polyglot rather than for a member of a scientific discipline. This is Angelene de los Arcos reporting.
The early period of linguistics, Ezra, Fallado, and Reggie Mae Galagala will give us the details.
Before the modern linguistics, accumulation of insight and knowledge reaches to the early stages of human history where ancient languages remains. It is what we call the proto-linguistics. During the early periods, each terms for uses and varieties was being elaborated since every society has their own terms, beliefs, attitude, and knowledge that was based on uninformed speculation rather than scientific method and was singled out as its folk linguistics. The interaction between it and discipline of linguistics in a society sets some of the limits and direction of the discipline based on the interest of historians of science and sociologists of knowledge. So looking back 2,500 years ago, disciplined studies of language began to appear as heralding a stage of national philologists. The greatest achievement of this study of language used in literature occurred in the Indian tradition, culminating in the work of Panini before the start of 19th century. So Western study was shaped through history by a tradition of philosophic thoughts and pedagogic grammars. The study of this in conveying meanings began amid controversies over analogia and anomalia. Etymological, a system of grammatical categories, evolved based on the Greek and then Latin. A great merit of the classical work was that it treated language structure integrally. Exclusive attention to the languages of an empire was a great limitation shared by early philologists, and the restriction of the study was quite inevitable, but it was damaging the general knowledge of language itself.
Good day everyone, I am going to report about the study of linguistics in the early period. In the early period of study in linguistics, words, terms, and internal structures of language is unconsciously known. Before modern age, every society has already its own terms, belief, knowledge, and attitude in the language that they commonly use. The interactions between people and folks when it comes to language, they had to set the limitations on it in order to interest the science of ecologists of knowledge. Hence, this may help a lot to expand the significant ideas and accurate knowledge in all aspects of language. To conclude, the early period of study in linguistics is spectacular in terms of structure of words, well organized, and so much interesting that might help to broaden and deepen our knowledge when it comes to language matters.
For the early modern period of linguistics, Mrs. Dianne Maningo and Zerika Gemola has this report.
Early modern period. The early modern interest taken in language was intense and versatile. In this period, language education gradually no longer centered on Latin. Unlike an early period, a system grammatically categorized was evolved based on the nature of Greek and then Latin. The linguistic scope widened considerably, partly as a result of curiosity scholarly. Although religion and missionary zeal, commercial considerations, and political motives were also a decisive significance. Statements discovered the political power of standardized vernacular in a typical early modern process of state formation. The widening of the linguistic horizon was first and foremost reflected in steadily increasing production of grammars and dictionaries, along with pocket textbooks, conversational manuals, and spelling treatises. It meant that the existing language and the development from the past linguistic into a modern.
In addition to this linguist discussion of our topic is Study of Linguistic in the early modern period. One strategy of coping with studying linguistic diversity consisted of, first, collecting data in many languages as possible, and then second, tracing elements that were common to all or to certain groups of language. Language comparison is not limited to historical and theological endeavors, as scholars started also to compare a number of languages in terms of their allied voices and qualities. Another way of dealing with the flood of linguistic data is focus on what the different languages had in common, which lead to the development of general grammars, of which the 17th century Court Royal Grammar is the most well-known. During the Enlightenment, the nature of language and its cognitive voice became also a central theme in philosophical debates, in which major thinkers were actively engaged.
For the linguistic, in 19th century, Chrislyn and Jenerose Grado will give us an update.
Approximately from the French Revolution to World War I, the major study on 19th century linguistics records it as the triumph of historical work, especially of comparative Indo-European. From that standpoint, the course of the century is one of the increasing precision and power of historical method and of its very wide application. Indo-European studies held the center of the stage, and scholars worked amid the rise of Oriental philology and of interest in the wisdom from the East, symbolized by Sanskrit. Among the main accomplishments of the period were the pioneering comparisons of Rusk, the comparative grammar of Book, the recognition of regular patterns of sound change in Germanic by Grimm, the etymological dictionaries of Pot and Pick, the method of reconstruction in the family tree, model of relationship of Schleicher, the more exact specification of regularities in change in sound and of the role of grammatical analogy of the Jung Grammatiker, and others of the 1870s.
The concern with typology was their main source of the attention paid to the culture out of languages, and it is possible import, witness enjoying the Lancing First Journal, and the Social Psychology by Senthal and Lazarus in 1960. The cognitive interest was retained and by isolated with grammatical categories and processes of individual languages, quite discovered from board classes and stage, through the interest become the instinct part of American linguistic anthropology. Typology is a part of the third trend, the preparation of the 19th century of the cultural outlook that has to domain the 20th, and this outlook much has to depend on the approach taken to the sounds of speech. In the 19th century, European languages often were taken as a norm, which has the sounds of primitive languages seems odd to even to lack the constant unit, as a son projection, the lack of the structure were betrayed and indicated understanding for the nature of primitive languages being studied. Speech sounds were studied officially by phonetics, conceived as a natural sciences.
For the linguistics in the 20th century, here's Jesaiah Higana and Hazel Minardo to give us an update.
Study of Linguistic in 20th century. There were many important developments in linguistic theory and research during this century, but none more significant than that of transformational generative grammar, or as it came to be known, transformational grammar. Synchronic and diachronic studies were seen by Ferdinand de Saussure as being incompatible by the father of modern linguistics, who saw no reason for them. Diachronic linguistics is the study of language throughout history, while synchronic linguistics is the study of language at a specific time. This means that synchronic and diachronic linguistics differ primarily in terms of their focus or point of view of study. As a result of this, two important points emerge. First, that the structural approach is not limited to synchronic linguistics, but can also be applied to the study of meaning. Second, that the study of meaning as well as the study of phonology and grammar can be structural in orientation. Structuralism and atomism are opposites in both cases in European literature, as much as his early work in the historical and comparative field was unquestionably structural. De Saussure was of the opinion that diachronic language studies should be more concerned with the historical development of isolated elements. It should be atomistic. This is Jesaiah Mae Higana reporting.
In the United States, the structural linguistics matrix was primarily anthropological. Boas had paved the way with his critique of existing generalization about the nature of language in light of the American Indian evidence, as well as his insistence on describing each language as a distinct entity. Bloomfield's language was the first systematic exposition of the new descriptive approach in the United States, and it became the standard reference for a generation of students. Language by Sapir is a masterful collection of variations on the theme of grammatical form autonomy. In contrast to European perspectives, and indeed to Boas and Sapir's perspectives, the effective scope of linguistics became specially narrow in the United States for a time. This is Hazel and Minardo reporting.
Present trend and structural model. Kate, Ashlyn, and Paulo has this report.
Recent trends and structural models. Developments within structural linguistics continue to hold the center of the stage. Models of language structure current on the American scene can be noted cursorily. Number 1, the Traeger-Smith-Joss model. Number 2, the Tagmemic model. Number 3, the means-ends model. 4, transformational generative grammar. Number 5, the stratificational model. 6, system structure. Yet, any periods compromise both the new and emerging and the old and steadily continuing in a variety of forms, as has been indicated to the present state linguistics. This is Kit Ashlyn Paulo. Back to you guys.
For the classification of language, Clowie, Roluna, and Marivic, Lencio, please give us an update.
Language is to produce a string of sounds that signify certain meaning and to understand or interpret the sound produced by others. There are 3 fundamental language components. The first one is grammar, the second one is functional language, and the last one is vocabulary. Knowing the sound system of a language includes more than knowing the inventory of sounds. It means also knowing which sound may start a word. Knowledge of language enables you to combine sound to form words, words to form press, and presses to form sentence. It is aspect of the language which is easy to quite illustrate. Sometimes particular sounds combinations seem to relate to a particular concept of language.
There are 2 kinds of classification of languages practiced in linguistics: genetic or genealogical, and typological. The purpose of genetic classification is languages into families according to their degree of diachronic relatedness. For example, within the Indo-European family, so far, most of the languages of the world have been grouped only tentatively into families, and many of the classificatory schemes that have been proposed will no doubt be radically revised as further practice is made. Typological classification groups languages into types according to their structural characteristics. The most famous typological classification is probably that of isolating, agglutinating, uninflecting, or fusional languages, which was frequently invoked in the 19th century in support of an evolutionary theory of language development. This is Marivic, Lencio. Back to you guys.
We'll be back after this short reminder.
This is DZRX 99.1 News of the Day. For the recap of today's hottest news: Field of Linguistics, Development of Linguistics, Early Period of Linguistics, Early Modern Period of Linguistics, Linguistics in 19th century, Linguistics in the 20th century, Recent Trends and Structural Model, Classification of language.
And that's all for the updates for this day. I am Ailyn, Mendaña.
I am Mary Jane Rihanna.
This is DZRX 99.1 News of the Day.
The Agent
The Voice
of Cantilan.